This is another in the series of Minute Mysteries, in which you are invited to match wits with the world's greatest detective, Sherman Oaks. Now, Minute Mystery number 13, the case of the purloined denture. It all began one afternoon inside the palatial country estate of the steel magnate Jonathan Applegate. Applegate had decided to change his will, and for that purpose had summoned a local attorney, Supreme Court Judge Joseph Repstock.
Applegate, if you change your will, your life won't be worth a plug nickel.
But, heedless of the warning, Applegate directed his lawyer to call a gathering of all his relatives. Before the week was out, every Applegate was on his way. No sooner had the last relative arrived than a door leading to Jonathan Applegate's private study slowly opened. Very slowly opened. In fact, so slowly it was an hour later before it was fully opened. Lights went out and... Eventually, Applegate's lifeless form fell to the floor. 1 week later in Washington, another door slowly opened, and out came the world's greatest detective, Sherman Oaks.
The game's afoot. The game's afoot. Oh, yes, the game's afoot.
Last week, remember, Oaks blew the sewer gang case wide open. Knowing that all Applegates returned to the scene of the crime, Oaks hurried to Philadelphia, where he questioned such shady characters as Peter Pocketpicker, who had picked a peck of pockets, and Stella Seller, who stole seashells by the seashore. Then at last, a solution. The trap was sprung, and the murderer caught. Now, who done it? Can you do what Sherman Oaks did? Can you solve this crime? Here are the clues. The murder knife, a man-eating duck, a sidewalk, poisoned water, a collection of various things, a flying goose, Profumo's address book. And now for the suspects. Harry Applegate, Mary Applegate, Teddy Applegate, Mother Applegate, Baby Applegate, Pippin Applegate, Winesap Applegate, and Applegate Turnover. And now you have just 60 seconds to name the killer. Time's up. If you named the butler, you were right. The butler did it.
And now Glipton Soup brings you Teenage Tips starring Ricky Teenage.
That's right, gang. This is Ricky Teenage. And today I want to pass along some tips on popularity. So let's just check with the mailman and see what's bugging you cats out there the most. Merle Squink, a student at Edward Arnold High, writes, Mommy and Daddy bought me this Keen mirror and a Christian Dior suit, but the kids still say I don't look right. Here's a teenage tip, Merle. Pay more attention to your feet. When you're preparing to go out on that important date, remember that shoe polish can be a boy's best friend. Yes, plain old shoe polish. Just dab it on, polish it up to a high gloss, and you... On the shoes, Merle. Merle. Oh, forget it, Merle, and don't write in again. Now, gang, since we're on popularity tips, I can't stress how important it is to make a good impression when you enter a room. Good grooming isn't enough. You've got to have a smile on your face, good posture, and a confident manner, plus a few witty remarks to make.
What makes elephants wear tennis shoes? Knock, knock. Who's there? What has 4 wheels and flies?
Believe me, you've made an impression. Now, buddies, about athletics. Just remember that going out for a clean, wholesome sport at school is mighty important to your popularity. And remember, it's better to be punchy than unpopular. I'll be back in a minute with more teenage tips. But first, a word from the Glipton Soup people.
What's on the table that tastes like that? Must be something from
Clifton!
Must be something from Clifton. Just Clifton.
And teenagers, when you eat your Gliptons, or anything else, remember what an important part in popularity table manners can play. Fat Charlie Dubin, a sophomore at Fidel Castro High in Birch City, writes,
When I eat beans in the school cafeteria with the other kids every day, the prettiest girl in school, Jaja Goldfinger, keeps staring on me. Am I doing something wrong?
Of course not, Charlie. Correct table manners like yours are often the object of close attention by your friends. Soon you will see that many of them will copy you. Because, Charlie, you've got class.
Dear Ricky Teenage, as you can see, I am every inch a lady. But when my boyfriends come to call and my father meets them in the living room, they always lose interest somehow. Why do you suppose this is? Signed, Wanda Jean Obese.
Wanda, I'd like to show you two fine kids that have worked this problem out for themselves. The father, in this case, also wanted to meet the young man who came to call on his lovely daughter, Lila Mae Stallcup. But the boy, John Fitzgerald Needleman, a pole vault champ at Attle of the Hun High, was desperately afraid that if he met Lila Mae's father, he, the father, might find out that he, the boy, drove a hot rod. But in this case, he was needlessly worried. The story turned out happily because it developed that Lila's father wasn't nearly as headstrong as they thought. In fact, his head was seriously weakened by a severe cerebral concussion. And now, finally, kids, let's look at a typical average teenage party in a typical average American home just like your own when your parents are away for the night. Yes, throwing a party like this when Mom and Dad are gone is the true road to popularity. The folks will appreciate the fact that you were at home instead of out on the streets with a lot of vandals. And gang, when the police show up, assist them in any way you can. That's important at all times. You'll find that if you meet the police halfway, they'll lead you on the right path. Yes, be popular with the police, too. You'll find if you string along with the fuzz will string along with you. If you go around with them, they'll go around with you. And they'll be more tolerant of your typical teenage driving habits. Habits that make you so popular with the bunch. Now, this is Ricky Teenage saying so long, gang. And call me if you'd like a tall, thin hot rod.
Foam, King of the Mad Dogs. Chapter 15, Wages of Sin.
Well, Foam fans, as you remember, the mysterious Black Fairy stole the secret plans and kidnapped Sally Sweetmouth, Foam's best friend. Meanwhile, Captain Dick's yacht was in trouble, for Foam, locked in Stateroom B, attempted to alert the Coast Guard with a signal rocket. But being a dog, all he did was set the cabin on fire. Meanwhile, overhead, the Black Fairy's henchmen were dropping a deadly cargo of high explosives. Luckily, the wind changed, and they fell harmlessly on New York City. Back on board the steamer, Foam was attempting to put out the fire with a mosquito net. Remember, he is only a dog. By now, the smoke had reached the sensitive nostrils of the ship's firefighting crew. Springing into action, they not only doused the fire, but the passengers and the ship as well. Meanwhile, back on the small island, Foam's twin brother Froth, a full-blooded cocker, was retreating for the king. Now, as you well remember, it is Froth's job to wait until the king fires his gun, and then bring back whatever was brought down. One day, the king shot a doe. a John Doe. Froth leaped into action, but due to an old case of rabies, fell short of his mark and instead retrieved the king. Meanwhile, Foam, brother to the now dead Froth, struggled ashore carrying a purse he had stolen from the purser. Foam sped to the rescue. Meanwhile, Froth, only half dead, had taken a plane back to the States. Unaware that the Black Fairy and his henchmen were about to strike again.
Ready, aim, fire!
Is this the end of Froth? Don't miss Chapter 12, entitled The King's Revenge.
Ooh.